So it's been a little bit since we did one of these. I think trying to remember when we did the last one. It was before Christmas, really. The big break that we did a big one. I did a tour of the sites of Eve between Christmas and New Year's, and we did like a little mini one of these at that point as we were just going around looking at the site. So, big one for these things is just for you guys to like do a prompt for me of something that you want to hear, want to know the story behind, or the history for it. I've been playing the game for a long time, so I've seen a lot of it. Some of it is just I wasn't there, but I've read about it because it just predates me. But yeah, we'll just kind of chit chat for a little while. I do have a space meeting here in about 2 hours, so that'll put like an absolute limit on how long I can chat with you guys. We'll go for like an hour, hour and a half, something like that. It's usually what I do for these histories. And I see a number of you are listening. I will. This was actually a suggestion for me a couple of these ago. I will pull up Elysium for you guys who are listening. If you're in another fleet or, doing something like that. If you want to type a question in the fleet itself or in Elysium, I will pull Elysium up on Jabber. So give me a minute. I need to click a couple more buttons and then we'll we'll really do story time there. But think about kind of a thing that you'd like to have a question or a prompt or something like that from somebody. Okay, two somewhat similar questions. They're both dealing with kind of enemies of the past. I'm gonna go with the Kremlin one first. What was X-47? This was a super cap, and so it was a super carrier and Titan engagement in the system of X-47. I'm honestly spacing exactly what year it was. Sunner, do you know, or does anybody know exactly what year that is? But it was a few years ago. Uh, and it was a case to where we were fighting over a citadel, which is what a lot of these engagements are. Back in the day, it was pause warfare. That was the big one with passive moon mining, all those kind of things. Today, it's mostly citadels. Because if you guys have been on an Atosis op, nobody gives a shit about doing Sov warfare that way. That's not gonna like provoke a fight of X-47 size or M2, anything like that. It was over a citadel, and the butcher's build was pretty good on that one. Nowhere near M2's level, but it was pretty good for that point in time. Non-exist. I think that's how you say your name. I'm not sure what else you might like on it. Like if you want totals of how many ships were destroyed, I honestly would have to look them up. But it was not small.
And and please correct me if I'm wrong, but X-47 was also the Keepstar fight against Frat a couple years back when we were active up north in, with B3.
Yeah, I mean so X-47 has been the site of multiple engagements. I guess I probably should have clarified that. I assumed you meant the Super Cap Titan engagement there, but it's been the site of a couple of throwdowns over the years.
Question: what happened in M2?
I'm sorry, say that again, man. I missed that.
A question: what happened in M2?
Uh, so the big, so the big piece of M2. So this was in Delve. The system of M2 is in Delve. This was the very end of 2020. It was literally the very end of 2020, and we're right in the height of the war that we call Vietnam. A lot of the game calls it World War B or World War B2. We call it Vietnam. We're in the height of it, right? PanFam and all the alliances are pushing in on our territory from pretty much every direction. M2 is, like I said, it's a system that's just there, and it was like, okay, here's a skirmish commander, is a brand new guy. And I've said this before in a previous history, is like I didn't know who this guy's name is. It's been lost to me. I don't know who this random skirmish commander was. He was one of our guys. And he went out and refed the Sinojammer in M2. It was an enemy Sinojammer. They had taken control of the system, but we still had a Keepstar there. At the time, PanFam's goal was to anchor a Sinojammer and then bring in their fleets under cover of that Sinojammer to kill the Keepstar. It's the most cowardly bullshit way of doing it. I mean, it does work. They killed a lot of Keepstars doing it. But they were convinced, mostly Billy, was convinced that it was the only way to kill a Keepstar was under a jammer. We proved that not to be the case when we blew several of their Keepstars out of space without using jammers. But at M2, our skirmish commander refed the jammer. That allowed us to bring in our own fleets, and they could not be camped out on the gates, right? We could sino our fleets in. And that one incident, just reffing that jammer, is what kicked off the largest Super Cap and Titan engagement in EVE's history. I mean, to this point in time. Could have another one, sure, but for right now, as we're sitting here in, it's February. Can't believe it's already February. February 2026, M2 is the largest Super Cap and capital engagement. Not by numbers of people, it actually got eclipsed a little bit later, but by the number of ships destroyed. No greater number of Titans and Supers were destroyed in any other engagement on TQ than at M2. Total number of people is a little bit lower than some of the later engagements, but the Butcher's Bill was substantially higher.
I heard this was like longer time ago, and I don't know if goons were part of it, but a big ass battle happened in BR something.
Yeah, so that's the Battle of BTACR. Um, let me come back to that one because a couple of the questions have come in. But yeah, the Battle of BTACR, absolutely, we were involved with that. I was in that engagement myself. That was during what we call the Halloween War. Help me on time frames, guys. Is that 2016? No, that was before that because it was 2014 or 2012. Kind of in that neighborhood. Was it 2013?
2013
It was
in
2013.
January.
Yeah, because I went to FanFest that year that it happened, and it was a few weeks before FanFest. It was hilarious. Um, okay, so I always wondered what the X47, right, back-to-back X47 champions. Yeah, we won both of those engagements. That's where that op name comes from. Petra, so the rise and fall of PanFam. That's an interesting question, and it leads directly into what was just asked on comms there about the X47, the M2, the BTAC-R. All of those engagements were against who would be classified as PanFam. PanFam may not have existed in some of those points in time. BTAC-R, they did not. PanFam was not a thing at that point. The alliances were, but that mega coalition didn't exist back then. There was a couple others. They were a little more independent, kinda, than they are now. But PanFam basically came from Pandemic Legion, which created Pandemic Horde, and then you got all of the guys who came with him. So NC Dot, what become like Fraternity, all of those alliances, right? Dozens and dozens of alliances together into a mega coalition. It's their version of the Imperium. And so they rose up and so somebody just corrected me there. Penguin did. So BTAC-R was in 2014. Okay, so I must have been at FanFest in 2014 then. I was at FanFest right after BTAC-R took place that year, so it must have been 2014. I was there. Anyway, so PanFam rose up as a mega coalition through this point in time, going into again, we call it Vietnam. So into 2020 is when PanFam really, like, that's when we kind of started giving them that name, doing all those kind of pieces, and doing everything. And then we get it all done, right? We win Vietnam. We've won several other engagements against them. They were still around, and we firmly expected to be fighting them like right now. We had an invasion already planned. Like I said, this has been declassified for you guys, but we had an invasion already planned to kick off in 2026 against, PanFam's primary holding, right, which was in the drone lands, right, like with Horde, with NC Dot, etc. And then the 5th of November, which is a date that's going to go down in Eve's history, right? Gobbins comes in and announces that he's leaving and that Horde is leaving PanFam. Now, PanFam was effectively under the control of Horde. You can make a good case that Frat was a major power in there, and I think that's a good case to be made, but it still was under the de facto control of Pandemic Horde. So when Gobbins said, hey, you know, I'm leaving, we're going to transfer all this, et cetera, all those kind of things that happened just a couple of months ago, that's what killed PanFam effectively. So huge answer on that one, man. But PanFam's history goes back. You can make a good case between 15 years, give or take. Depends on where you really want to start it. As people are talking about in Elysium there, Asakai was another one of those. The stuff around Head GP was another one. Asakai was a result of Boat, otherwise known as the Big Red Boat or DBRB, jumping his Titan instead of bridging a fleet into it. I was not actually involved in Asakai. I was at work when this all happened, but I was involved in BTACR. Again, I was at work when that one kicked off, but it was still going when I got home. And I was one of the people who was bringing in our reinforcement fleets. And then I was on the station camping fleets for quite a while after that. That was when we hell camped the old outpost. Do you know the sites of bounty will rise up? Jarg, man, I have no idea what you're talking about there, man. I just don't know what you mean by the sites when bounty will rise up. I got nothing.
I kind of wasn't here a little bit, but I don't know if you answered my question. I asked like why and what happened in BWR.
It was just it was the at that point in time it was the largest super cap engagement, and it occurred because of an unpaid SOV bill by the owners of the system, and so their SOV dropped, and we attacked them, locked down the entire system, and we held their entire armada that was in the outpost. Now you could not dock supers and titans in the outpost. That was not allowed with the old outpost. But we hell camped everything else in that outpost for a good period of time. Again, you couldn't lock supers and titans. They couldn't dock in the outposts. But that's what kicked it off. The battle only lasted about a day. It was basically a downtime to downtime kind of a thing. The hell camp lasted quite a bit longer. And this is where you would cover stations. Again, we used to call them stations. Their formal name was an outpost. You would cover them in anchorable bubbles, and you would sit either sentry carriers or sentry dummies. We used both, just depended on what you were flying. On the undock, and you'd put a fast locking, usually an interceptor, right on the undock where they would come out with something like a target painter. You would assist all of your drones because carriers could use drones at the time. Sentry drones primarily. They could use all drones, but these were sentry carriers. They would kick out flights of sentry drones. And you would assist them all to this fast locking interceptor. He would sit on the undock, and you would fuck off and go to work. And you would come back home, and you'd have 10, 20, 30 kill mails, depending on the day, because you could assist all of these drones to one guy. Now you can't do that now. You can still assist drones, but it's nowhere near that level. And all he had to do was perform an offensive action against a target, like using a target painter, and all of the drones would fire on him. And so you'd get, let's say you had 250 Dommies, let's just say. They each kick out 5 sentries. And so all of those sentries would slam that fire into that one target instantaneously because they use gun mechanics, they use turret mechanics. And you would just evaporate them. They would just die. Sentry carriers were even worse because they could use even more drones. You had to put a carrier on the field. But we bubble wrapped the shit out of that outpost. I remember you would log in your carrier and you're just like, okay, I wonder how badly I'm going to bounce today because you had no idea who was on grid or where they were. And you'd bounce like 50 clicks off of your sentries, and you're like, shit. All right, well, I guess those are gone, and you'd probably just log out and say fuck it. And then when you log back in, you'd kick out a new flight of sentries because carriers had a whole bunch of them back then. As Penguin is just saying, in Elysium, asset safety absolutely did not exist. So if you were in an outpost that was locked down, which is what we did, that was it. Your shit was staying there unless you physically got into the ship and flew it out. Nice. Were outposts more like NP stations than citadels? Yes, they absolutely were. They were converted into the faction Fortizars. So if you are in CJ right now and you are undocked with me, the Marginus Fortizar that is our memorial, that is one of the old outposts. So whenever you see that name, right, where it's got quotes, some name that says Fortizar, those are the old outposts. Okay, I've been focusing a little too much on Elysium. Let me do fleet chat ones. I'll come back over to Elysium here. Right, was M2 the last Super Cap fight? Yes, for Super Carriers and Titans. I mean, unless you want to count like some minor things of like somebody ganking somebody, I don't consider that to be a Super Cap fight. But the last real throwdown where it was truly engaged was at M2. We brought all of our supers and heavy assets into their capital right when we invaded into drones, and we took all of that stuff in there against Horde in November. I also would not consider that to be an engagement because they didn't undock and fight us. They undocked, but they just sat there, right? They never truly threw down with us. So, in my opinion, yes, M2 was the last big super cap engagement. So the jammer in M2, as you're saying there, was some brand new skirmish commander guy. Like I said, I don't know his name. I've said this on a couple of fleets. If anybody knows his name or anything like that, like send it to me. I'd love to see what he's doing. But yeah, it was some random skirmish commander at the time. Was it the longest hell camp? I honestly don't know. I've been through so many hell camps. I don't remember, but I think so. The Halloween War one with BTAC took forever as well, but I think M2 was the longest.
Okay, my first question of the day.
Yeah, it's just some of these things when you just get into some of these histories there, man. Like, yeah, there's so many pieces tied into it, but yeah. So BTAC was one of the first of the what became the standard hell camp patterns with outposts. Used to be done with pauses, same kind of thing. You would put large. You'd have to use T2 if it was a large tower. You'd have to use T2 large mobile warp disruptors to trap anything fully inside. It had to do with how the fields were generated. It was a bitch to do, but if you did it just right, they were trapped. Purple Shades, is the Titan Rex still in BTAC-R? Yes, it is. In fact, that debris field is still there. When I did my see the sights of Eve just about 6 weeks ago, I took everybody out to BTAC-R, and yes, those Rex are still there. You can go out and see them. It is a warpable, what do they call that? Object. in your overview, you can warp right out to them. So was Frat the real winner of World War B2? That's an interesting question. It's been posed and debated among a lot of people. I mean, you can make a strong case that we won because we kicked everybody out of our space and reconquered it. However, so I don't think they won in that sense. I think they emerged the strongest of all of the PanFam kind of groups following that war. I think there's a very strong case for that because because they're off time zone, right? They were and still are a very heavily CNTZ or ghost time zone, however you guys want to do it. Most of us just call it CNTZ. Uh, Centered group, whereas a lot of the rest of PanFam is either EU or US TZ, like Goonswarm is. And so Frat took probably the fewest losses and damage following the war. So were they the winners? I think we were the winners of that one, but they definitely emerged the strongest of all the PanFam alliances. Okay, next one. Question about Amazon. Did we know that PanFam had way more dreads than we did? Uh, so the answer is yes. We knew they had a dread cache. The question is how big is the dread cache versus how much are you willing to commit to it? So if you've got 1,000 dreads, but you're only willing to take 100 dreads out, well, then you really only have 100 dreads, right? You've got reships then. And so it's a little bit between like the bandwidth, how many can you actually field at once, and how many reinforcements can you have? And those two numbers are really difficult to judge because what most people do is they'll bring the dreads and they'll either build them in system or they'll bring them in kind of slowly. You know, you bring in 2 or 3 a day, and then you have those all to like long
X
out,
up in fleet if you're close to the enemy.
all those kind of pieces. So it's one of those things that it's hard to do as well, and it's a difficult number to judge. I remember when that all kicked off, we were just like, oh, they actually committed all of them. We did not expect them to throw down kind of as hard as they did. So we knew they were there. They just caught us a little surprised by how much they were willing to put on the table. Oh,
Like,
Zero,
what
you were
should
there you were in BTEC R in a super. Nice. I don't think I would have been your entry signal in there because I was primarily doing dreads at the time, but it's possible, man. After so many years, who the fuck knows? Yeah, the tie-dye that exists today did not exist in the battles of like Asakai and BTEC R. It was just not a thing. Tie-dye came in later. Mike Monster, is there a bookmarked folder of these historic memorials to visit ourselves? So a bookmark, no, but there is a website that I actually got from Merkelchin that's got a list of a whole bunch of these. So let me pull that convo up and I will put it in Fleet for you. Give me a second to dig through that convo. I gotta find it. There you go. That's it. I don't know how like complete that list is, but I've looked at that site and it's great. It's got a lot of them on there that I have seen and been to myself, been involved with and do those kind of pieces. So I think that's as close as you're going to get to um, a full like list of all of those. Right. So was Amazon an area of intelligence? Like, yeah. I mean, we were just. It's one of those things we didn't expect them to throw down like they did, um, because that's not historically the way that they do things. Their PanFam has always been cowards, like with it. They don't tend to commit things like that, and so we were caught a little by surprise by the fact that they actually did. Okay, let me hop back over to Okay, so right, I see you got that one.
Yeah, I got a question. Why did the goons move from Delve to Innsmouth?
So Delve was just too small for us. That's we wanted to be closer to the enemy. We wanted to be on the front lines, and Delve itself was hemmed in by our allies, literally on all sides. And so we decided, we want to move closer to where Horde was at the time, right, which is in the Dromlands back then. And so we jumped basically 3 times to different areas, moving closer to them every time. And when they resisted our invasion, like they didn't really resist it. They put up token resistance, expecting us to go in, burn the area to the ground, and then leave again. And there was actual historical precedence for that. There was absolutely a case to where we had done that before, gone into a region, torched it to the ground, and then went back to Delve. And they expected us to do that again, and then when we didn't, it surprised them.
And why did you move? Why did you move so aggressively?
Well, because we wanted to provoke them into a fight by putting ourselves directly on their border. And because they're such cowards, if you move slowly, they'll just retreat in front of you, which is exactly what they did. So we tried to jump like directly onto their border, which is what we did right here in CJ before they fucked off. We were Sunray, help me with the number, wasn't it like 6 jumps and you could be in their staging system and engage them or something like that? 7, something like that kind of a route. So we were trying to. Oh, someone left. Slacker. Whatever. It was something like that, guys. It was less than 10 jumps from CJ, and you could be in their staging system. And then they moved their staging system further away from us. Right. That was their original staging system. It's just a handful of jumps away. And then they moved it away to where we ended up hell camping them in for that week and blew their staging keep star to hell. So yeah. So despite being closer to the enemy, this space is safer for Krebs. So it's more compact. And so what we were able to do as well is to bring the Beehive umbrella into the main capital here, right in CJ, where you guys remember when we were in UALX, Beehive was not based in UALX. It was a few jumps out. So this space is more compact. It allowed us to cover more systems from the exact same location. And that was a big draw when we sat down and started looking at where do we want where do we want to move? Like, what region do we want to move to? What system do we want to be in? How is all that arranged? And so when we picked CJ, the big piece of it was to keep the staging for Beehive and the main combat staging in the same system. Looking through here, so Breach original stager was in GTAC Q. They moved it twice. Yeah, Penguin they did. I would argue they moved it like 5 times because they kept cowarding out. But yeah, they did. They moved it multiple times
4 times.
as
4
we
times.
moved closer. Yeah, they moved it a lot. Let's see. So Purple, why is it still called Delve 911 now that we don't live in Delve? Because goons are just we get a meme, we get a thing, and we lean into that, and because that's honestly it, man. Yeah, we don't like change, and it really comes down to no one has really come up with something new for it that the rest of the directorate is just like, boom, there it is. I'll tell you the name for the staging Keepstar, right? The Taj Magoon. We sat in Ilum one day, and we were all going back and forth on what to name the new staging Keepstar. And we went back and forth and back and forth. And Kaz is the one who came up with this name. And everybody would say, okay, react to it. As soon as Kaz put that name in it, we're like, full stop, that's it right there. And that's how we picked the name. Is we were all throwing names into the Ilum chat. one day during space meetings, and Kaz came up with that one, and we're like, boom, done, sold. Do I foresee a Super Cat brawl in 2026? Probably not. Simply because the political landscape where everybody is right now doesn't really match up with that. Only two groups could really do a full scale like Super Cat brawl against us, and that's Init and FRT. Right? That's it. Those are the only two who have the strength to do something like that. So do I see one in the future? Yes. Is it going to be this year? Probably not. Dieter, who's the? If you say goons, man, I mean you're not wrong. State War Academy. Shut up. Now the new Tiger Claws that everybody's been going out with, those are caps, and so a brawl against the new Tiger Claw carriers. One group already tried it. They did get stomped, but I mean, mad props to those guys. They dropped some dreads on it. They ate shit when they did it, but balls out to them. They actually did. They actually dropped on that fleet. Yeah, I mean, full props to those guys. They took a swing at that. They lost, but they actually took a swing at it, and no one else has. Granted, we have not run a huge number of those Tiger Claws, but only one group has even tried, and I give those guys mad props for it. So the Tiger Claw is just a carrier. They're just carrier fleets. So the fits are on the forums. You can get them. It's everything but the Chimera, because CCP doesn't like the Chimera, and it's been nerfed to shit. Beautiful. I may or may not have seen that. I honestly don't remember, man. People link all kinds of Reddit stuff to me, so I don't remember that specific post that you're talking about, but I would not be surprised if I did see it. So Penguin's asking, why is there no longer a JU-TAC standing fleet? So JU-TAC is a system that's in deck. It was home to Theta way back in the day, and they were the original cover fleet kind of a thing. So there is a line. It's a little fuzzy, but there is a line between the original Theta defense fleets based in JU-TAC and what Beehive is today. The line has a little bit of breaks in it as things were shuffled around, but Beehive today is what the original JU standing one was. It was the defense thing. But yeah, that's where that comes from. Oh, okay. Remember that was the thing. Yeah, the 12. Yeah, I mean, get just super mad props to those guys. They actually tried. I watched the videos of it. I was at work. Watched the video of it later. That can't remember who put that out. Warlock did, maybe. I think maybe he did one for it. Warlock Industries did. It's a great video. Was it Warlock? Okay, yeah, I thought so. Okay, I think I'm up to speed on all the questions there. If I missed your question, retype it either in Fleet or in Elysium, or just ask it here. But I think I got them all. Do you like fries with milk? No, you weirdo. I like my fries covered in bacon and cheese. And then usually a Guinness. That's usually how I like my fries. Are you trying to get me canceled here with Goon Culture? I'll say it. Screw you guys. No, pineapple pizza. Fuck you guys. Pineapples are nasty, man. Pepsi or Coke? I don't drink either. If I had to pick, I would do Coke. Pepsi's too sweet for me. Sumo or fish? Neither. So the original Beehive, yeah. So this was literally just called JU Standing. It was run by a group back in the day that was called Theta, and Theta was the defense group as well as the super crab group, right? So the guys were all about mining and ratting as well as dropping on nerds. That was Theta. That's what Theta did. And so they based everything that they did in the system of JUTAC in deck. As only that system has gone away, if you pull up Dotland and go to Declan, you'll see JUTAC. It's pretty much right in the middle, kind of towards the west side, but it's right there in it. The the system was much longer jump ranges back then. So this is before we get tie-dye that we mentioned. This is before we get jump fatigue. This is before citadels, right? JU Standing predated all of that stuff. And jump ranges were longer. So you could actually jump ships a longer distance in Eve for it. And so you could base your ships in JU. Most of them were carriers. Dreadnoughts were not super used back then because, again, carriers could have drones. So you would usually use carriers for these kind of defense fleets. Faxes didn't exist then. You would use carriers and triage carriers for it. And it was less that we're going to try and save you with reps as we are just going to land a tremendous amount of firepower on it and avenge you when you die. That was kind of more what it was. It's kind of like Goon's version of Concord. Like, we're not going to save you, but we're going to fuck them up when they do this. They might try and save you, but they're not going to triage a whole bunch of carriers to try and save a basic ship. Yeah, the Tivfit Chimeras, yep. That was a whole bunch of stuff with them. Did they just use VNIs back then? Oh, okay. I was in Theta, but I have to admit I never paid any attention to that. I was kind of always doing my own thing out in the corner.
This isn't really a history question, but are Lancer dreadnoughts actually useful for something?
Not really. I mean, so are they useful? Yeah, basically what people do is they sit on the high sec, low sec entry gates and they try and pop jump freighters with them. But other than that, no. I mean, I've got one of every Lancer Dread because when they came out, I was like, "Score! This is awesome." No, they're not. Nobody uses them except for that kind of. They're very niche uses. And basically, the only thing people do with them is they sit on the. They'll be in low sec because you can't take dreads into high sec. They'll sit on the low sec entry gate, and they'll just lance jump freighters.
So it's a broke Titan, basically. Broke guy's Titan.
Yeah, I guess. There was a lot of promise to them when they first came out. The fact that their lance would prevent you from jumping was a big issue. The original versions of it, we were all pretty worried it was going to absolutely strangle the hell out of nullsec logistics because you would prevent jump freighters from moving. That turned out to not be as big of an issue as we were originally afraid it would be, but it is still a pain in the ass. Pearl, do I see them doing anything? You mean with the Lancer Dreads? Probably not. They haven't been touched in quite a while. I mean, CCP does usually get around to doing something in a pass eventually, but Lancer Dreads have been around for a good bit, and they haven't been touched pretty much since they were introduced. Okay, let me see. Why do people still get upset at the Iskies, Toonies, Dynasties, Cultural Revolution was years ago? It's the same thing as like the Delve 911. Goons will lean into a meme, and those were the original like pubby words that GSF was so against 15 years ago. And while the Cultural Revolution, and we've gone through a couple of them, there's 3 or 4 depending on how you want to count them, made huge changes into us not being the dicks that we really were back then. That's one of the things that has kept up. The '07 thing that you'll hear bitter vets complain about, same thing, man. It comes from that same point. And I'm sure there are people who actually care. Um, I mean, I don't give a shit. It's like, okay, whatever. Um, doesn't really make any difference to me. But you will hear people complain about it, and that's what it is. It's a meme that goons lean into because it's what we do. So so the red meat grinder skin has CJ written on it. Yes, there was an engagement here in CJ many moons ago. And if you go to the Histories of Eve, or is it the Empires of Eve? I think it's Empires of Eve. The book that he put out, right? There's 2 of those books with it. That battle predates me. I was not involved in that one. That was here in CJ. So if you really want the history of that, you should go to the actual Empires of Eve book that he wrote. He did an excellent job with that. They're long ass books. I've got both of them. They are very long books, but he did a really good with it. Yeah, the Down the Rabbit Hole video is good as well. That one's like 6 hours long. I watched it in like 2-hour chunks. Again, he did an excellent job with that. It's something that, no history like that is ever perfect with it. He attributed, the guy who did the video, he attributed some of it to the wrong person. Like I was in some of those engagements, and I'm like, okay, the event happened, but the person he gave credit to something happening didn't actually do that. Like, because I was there. But all of the events, I think he did an excellent job with that video. And, it's a hard thing to step in as an outsider into Eve, make a video like that, and get everything right. I think he did an excellent job with it. Those mistakes are so minor that only someone like me who was in a command position or who was there would know, oh yeah, this person didn't do that because they were over here doing this other thing. But like the event was there. Yeah, the books are great. I admit when they came out, I spent the little extra of the real life Iskies and got the nice hard cover like leather bound versions of them. I don't remember how much it cost me, but it was a lot when I got them. I was like, fuck it, I want one of these. Okay, let me see. Let me go through Culture Revolution. DJ stand for Darius Johnson, 0. Yes, it does. He was not the original leader of GSF, but he was before Mittens, so over 10 years ago. Darius Johnson, or DJ, was the head of Goonswarm. And that's why the Executor Corp is today named DJ's Retirement, right? It's named after him.
Why did the war between us and the Horde started? Like, what did provoke the main war?
So that goes back almost 20 years to the Great War between Bob, like Band of Brothers. When Bob collapsed, they became groups like, well, they became groups like PL, NC Dot. A lot of their members went into those groups. And so this is a blood feud that has existed for 20 years between us. It all goes back to that original thing from almost exactly 20 years ago now. I was just thinking about this. You said, I was like, shit, this really was about 20 years ago. But it comes from the Bob GSF throwdown and, we hate you, they hate us kind of a thing. But yeah, it goes back all that way.
By the main war, I meant like what wiped out Horde right now. It was
Well, Horde doesn't exist
half a year
anymore,
ago.
so I mean, it doesn't matter. The corp does. It's in it, but the alliance and everything like that, it just doesn't exist anymore. So
Yeah, I'm interested like in what happened, why it happened. Why did they attack us or we them?
yeah, and that's the thing. That's what goes back 20 years is that hatred between the two groups. Goes back to that original piece um, of the way that Bob was dealing with everybody. They were these terrible kind of landlord guys. But yeah, it goes back that far, and it's just carried through so many generations of people.
Part of the original conflict was goons were seen as more just noobs who didn't know what they were doing. They're just chaos and frigates basically against the guys who consider themselves the elite players of the game. So that's how it started as a big conflict.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. We were chaos demons, absolutely. Was the PL on Goon's side during the war against Bob? The PL is a weird group. They have been allied kind of with Goons, and then they spent most of their time as our enemies. But yes, we were allies during this kind of far away time frame. I missed another question in here. So I was asking, how did I end up in Goons to do what I do now? So my journey goes back. It's hard to say exactly where it really started with that. I was in GSF. I was in a corporation called WeDot at the time. I was an instructor in Gooniversity, and I was also a member of a group called Reavers, which was run by Asher at the time. And so I became Reavers. I called myself the gatekeeper. That's what Asher used to call me. I was basically head of Reavers HR, so I really got to know Asher. I was also one of the handful of commanders for the Logi Wing in Reavers back then. There was only 3, 4, 5 of us, something like that. So there's only a handful of us. So I used to be on the command comms with Asher because I was commanding the Logi Wing for Reavers. I became the HR guy, and subsequently to that, like I got to know him because we worked on this stuff for many years. And then in 2020, as we're coming up to the outbreak of again what we call Vietnam, Asher came to me and asked me to found a group that we now call procurement. It had a couple of names back at that point in time as we were trying to figure out what it's called. It's most commonly referred to as procurement now. And that was how I got elevated into the directorate. So I became an ILM level director at that point. Also became a finance director during this whole thing as well. When Mittens stepped down and Asher took over as Space Emperor, sometimes we call him the Grand Poobah, but as leader of the GSFs and Imperium. Clavis, who was chief of staff at that point in time, he had been chief of staff to Mittens at the end of his tenure, carried into Asher. Clavis wanted to step down, and I stepped into the chief of staff role for GSF, and that's the role that I occupy today. I have a few space hats, but that's the big one is as Goonswarm's chief of staff. Okay, let me see here. I think we got all those. So Zero, I don't have a comment on that for somebody. So we did a fireside like 2 weeks before Christmas, I think it was. I'm trying to remember. We didn't do one the week before Christmas, and we didn't do one the week between Christmas and New Year's. We always traditionally give everybody in the directorate those weekends off. I think I did one coming up on that piece just to be around. Asher did one I think 2 weeks before. I think I did the one before it just cause. So, anyways, to your question, so is Mitten still playing? The answer is no. So the shuttle that he lost here in 2026. Here's what you can do with them. There's a mechanic that will allow you to give a ship to somebody, and if the structure is abandoned or it's in wormhole space, because they don't have asset safety, if it's in their hangar when it gets kicked out and you kill it, it shows their name on it. So it's not technically an exploit because it doesn't really matter to it, but it's kind of like an exploit with that. So if it was in wormhole space, they don't have asset safety. That's why that did that. If it was somewhere else in what is usually referred to just a K space, it was abandoned, and that's why you see that. So the structure has to blow up. No asset safety when it kicks out all of the assets right into cans and everything like that. And then if you blow up that ship, it just carries the name of the person even though they weren't there. They may not even know it was like in that station. It's just an old mechanic. But is Mids actually playing right now? No, he's not. He has not done anything since he stepped down a couple of years ago and Asher took over. So do we keep in contact with him? No, we do not. Like I have his contact information that if we needed to, the upper echelon of GSF could reach out to him if we needed to, but I haven't spoken to the man in several years myself. Again, not since he stepped down. He did what I think was a very wise thing at the time. When you make a break like that, you make a clean break. So, it's just like, okay, that's basically it. This chapter of my life is closed. The last time I talked with him, he was, just enjoying being not Space Emperor, but it's been quite a number of years since I've talked to him. Yeah, dude, I think probably the same for me. It's probably been 2 years or something since I've talked to him. Okay, let me come back over to Elysium. Yeah, dude, some of the old engagements that Reavers got into were a lot of fun. We did a deployment up to ROIR, most of which called it Roar, years and years ago, and that was so much fun. We were such dicks back then. It was great. We had I've told the story a couple times in the histories. We had an operative in the Horde fleet, their version of the standing fleet, their standing defense fleet. We had a hand operative in the fleet, and he knew we were out there. Was saying, "Hey, Asher, I'm on their fleet. Why don't I just call?" And we were in bombers. We were in their staging system in bombers. Why don't I just say that I'm tackled? Because we've been just running around just tackling them and killing people in their staging system. It was so dumb they were doing that, but we were just running around tackling and killing them in their staging system. And we're like, this is perfect. So he gets out in something. I don't remember what he was flying. It was a standard ratting ship used. Might be a mining one. I don't remember now. It was a standard one used by them. So it didn't raise any flags to them when we killed him. And we lined up our bombers. We're sitting there waiting for them. He's literally on comms talking to us. And he's like, okay, they're en route. We align to him. Asher timed it perfectly. We decloak. We fire our bombs. Our bombs are traveling as they're coming out of warp. They can see our fleet on their overview with bombs headed right to them. They land, our bombs detonate, and we wiped out their entire response fleet. Or however many guys that landed. I don't know, 10 guys or 15 guys, whatever it was. Whoever they sent to them, we smashed the entire fleet that they had sent. Killed our hand operative, yes, true. But we had killed several other, like, regular legit Horde people as well. And they never figured it out. They never purged that guy. Because he was just like number 6 or 7 that day that we had ambushed and killed. But we got a good chunk of the response fleet too. And we were having so much fun that when Asher told us, all right, it's time to go back home, we all kind of started whining to him because we didn't want to leave. He's like, God damn it, you're out of ammo. We're like, all right, well, that's fair. We had literally fired all of our ammo. We were dry. And we didn't have a covert Sino to bring in a ammo truck. We thought about it. But we'd already been out like 2 hours. He's like, we should just go home. So that's what we did. Yeah, so Roar was also one of the funniest ones. We had the station or the system at the time did not have a cloning bay in it. There was not a really great one. So Rat Knight, for those of you who know who Rat Knight is, uh, decided this is dumb, and so he got some Astra houses. They were relatively new at the time. They didn't have the cores that they use now. There's just an Astra house, and so he got an Astra house and he put it in Roar, and he put some fuel in it, and he put a clone bay in it, and we would just leave our clones there because you could only have one clone in a structure at the time. Uh, Not the way it is now. Even in a Citadel, it was just one clone per Citadel like that. And so we would leave clones in those, and that was our death clone, and you could do all that. It was what's called med clones, so that you could have those kind of pieces. Um, and they reinforced and killed that Astra house, and he put another one down. He shipped in like 10 of them or some ridiculous thing like that because there's an NPC station there. And so he kept all of those in the NPC station, and he would just undock, anchor a new one. They'd kill it eventually. He'd undock, anchor a new one. And after like the third or fourth time, they just stopped killing them. And he had that when Rat Knight retired from the game. That roar structure was still there. I had to go and get it and like unanchor it and pull it out myself because he's like, dude, I'm not going to keep fueling this. Will you just go pick it up? It's like, sure, I'll go get it. It stayed up for forever. When we left, he put like 2 years worth of fuel in it or something because he had a whole bunch of fuel just there. He's like, fuck it. And he just threw all the fuel in it. He just wanted to see what would happen. And I actually went up and had to unanchor it myself because it was just sitting there and it was about to run out of fuel. And asset safety was a thing at the time, and we didn't just want to leave everything. So yeah, I had to go and get it. But yeah, he was just dropping one. They'd kill it. He'd drop another one. That was like peak Rat Knight for those people who know him. That was him to a T. He's just like, all right, whatever. Screw you guys. Here's another one. I think they reinforced one, so he dropped another one. Yeah, he had 2 or 3 of them on grid at one point. It was hilarious. Okay, we've been going about an hour there, so we got any more questions? I'm fine to go over another like 30 minutes or so if you guys have more questions or prompts or anything like that.
I don't know if you know this, but where was the first Titan lost?
So there's a debate on that. There was, yeah. So there really is a debate on this as to the first one that was lost. There's been a persistent claim that it was killed due to an exploit. Um, and so the first one that is generally regarded as being lost is Steve. Um, and so it was called Steve. That was the name of the ship. And so really, when you look through all those, it's a really hard thing to pin down exactly what it was. Goonswarm was involved in killing one that was piloted by a guy named Shrike. Well, the alt's name was Shrike. Um, the videos.
Was Sir Molly?
Yeah, it was Somali. The videos of that, if you can find them, they're grainy as hell because from so long ago. They used to be up on YouTube, but it was piloted by a guy that we all knew as Somali. Um, the alt's name is Shrike, but the pilot guy is named Somali. And he was a descendant of like the Bob line kind of a thing going down. He ran an alliance called IT, literally the letters I and T. That all the way through the founding of the CFC was to evict his alliance from their home that was in Fountain at that point in time. That's when the CFC was founded. Was that war that threw them out? It was called DECCO before that. So he was that pilot for it. Yeah, it's a funny thing to look at. The guy's propaganda is terrible. Like his speeches are just awful. Somali's are. But that gave rise to a whole bunch of propaganda from our side that is just hilarious. There's a whole bunch of videos on YouTube with like Somali speeches, and I encourage you not to watch them at work. They're definitely a not safe for work kind of a video with it, but they're hilarious from this point in time. And so IT is a descendant of Bob. It went through. There was a whole bunch of them kind of through that line with it. But yeah, Somali was the head back then.
Hi, Ranger.
Hey, Lorraine, how are you? All right,
Not
well,
bad.
Lorraine's here. I guess we'll go now. So because screw Lorraine,
Whoa,
right?
whoa.
If you want another question, I'll give you another question.
Oh yeah, it's fine. Yeah. Questions away. I've still got about another 20 minutes or so before I teach out.
Okay, this is a bit of a not like historical question, but was like the special kind of keep star ever unheard?
I'm not sure what you mean by that. Like all keep stars.
Valentine, I think.
Are you
think
talking
you
about
asked
the
about Palatine.
Palatine? Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a thing. CCP did this as a. There are no Palatine keep star, and there can only be one because of the way that CCP configured it. But it's so ungodly expensive to build in terms of the material that no one is ever going to do it. You can get it's some ridiculous number. You can get dozens and dozens and dozens of regular keep stars for the price of this thing. So like nobody's going to do it. You have to have somebody ran the numbers on it, and it would take like 3 years of PI output of the entire game to be able to build the damn thing. It's just not going to happen. But it's a meme structure. Somebody just said in Fleet there, and it's just a total vanity project. For those of you who have played Civ, this is like the wonder of the world kind of a thing that if you build it right, you win. It's one of those kind of ridiculous things, but only one can exist in Eve. And it was supposed to be like this huge draw of conflict, but everybody looked at the requirements to build it and everybody's like, fuck this noise. And so nobody's ever even tried to build one.
And did somebody run the numbers on the actual cost
Oh yeah. Yeah, people have done
in
it.
ISK?
Hold on. I posted the legendary run by Tazi.
Oh, is that it? All right, yeah. Now, Tuzzy is a former head of GSOL. It would have been his job to assemble this. So those numbers are out of date because he did this a few years ago, but they're close enough for what we're talking about here.
Holy shit. That's a lot
Yeah.
of P4.
Yeah, it's a ton of it.
Let's just pool the taxpayers' money, and this will be the main keep star soonish.
Yeah.
But like, there's no point for it, right?
Yeah,
You can bid so many, yeah.
We just won't do it. It's just one of those things. It's like the meme thing of the Delve 911 thing. Like it's a total meme of somebody asks every fireside. Somebody did yesterday. What's the status of the Palatine Keep Star? And every time we used to give a number, and we used to just say it, and then we'd be like, "Oh, well, we decided to invade a region, so we took all the P4 to build other citadels." It's just a meme that the directorate has leaned into, mostly because you guys get a kick out of it, and we think it's funny as well. But yeah, it's just not going to happen. Nobody's going to build it.
Surge.
So somebody just asked me, is PGL still involved in the game? Kinda. Like he's not active because this isn't he's a wartime guy. So when like wars happen and shit goes down, he's active. When peacetime is going on and there's not a huge amount of stuff doing it, you don't generally see him. I've met him. He actually lives in my hometown, so I've actually met him just once, but I have met him.
So to give you guys an idea, we have so many expensive Cs, right? Like Mr. V, etc. That they go into hibernation if there's no war, right? If you see a war, they just straight up, everyone just come back.
Yeah, they do tend to fall out of the woodworks and come back. There's a lot of goons, and it shouldn't just be goons. It's around Eve. There's a lot who are wartime players, right? They've got their alts. Shit goes down. They come back for a few months and then they go inactive again until they come back. And you'll see that we saw this a ton during Vietnam. when we had people coming back, and there was people like me who were, and you would see this all the time on the fleets, and we're just like, oh shit, man, how are you doing? Like, we haven't seen you in years, and like, oh yeah, and uh, like the new people are like, who the hell is this guy? And he was somebody that was just put in there, right? Just did Lazarus Telraven. Was a big fleet commander in GSF. Um, he was somebody who I I knew he was not fully in charge, but basically in charge of the battle at BTEC-R.
I was about to ask, yeah.
Yeah, he ran that engagement from the GSF side, and so yeah, I mean he was there. He did all that kind of stuff. I met him as well at FanFest. He gave a fun talk at FanFest that year where he's talking about it, and he's got leaks from the hand of enemy. I guess Jabber channels. We use Jabber, whatever their text, whatever their version of Jabber is. He's got leaks of their channels that he got from the hand compared to ours, and it's funny on that talk that he gave because he's actually showing them. Here's where we killed our first Titan. And they're bragging about killing a couple of dreads. And then it's like, okay, well, here's 5 more Titans that we killed while you were killing these 5 dreads. He's got a lineup like that. It's hilarious. So what happened to Jay? He's in. So he moved to PL, and I have not seen him active or doing anything basically since he moved there. So
He's an
he hasn't
NPC
done
corp.
anything. Yeah,
Basically quit the game. Yeah.
yeah. He's as far as I know, he's totally gone.
Well, in my opinion, that's what happens when you burn the only bridge that you used to walk on, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
he-
Laz
he
is a good
did
guy.
burn the bridge, so he wouldn't come back. That was his goal.
Yep. And it's not. Well, I would prefer he not have done it that way. The mental logic is pretty sound on that.
Listen, guys, if I'm gonna quit, you guys, I'm gonna tell you. Don't worry. I'm not gonna fucking.
Oh, it's okay,
Steal your
Lorraine. We'll
shit.
hear you.
Yeah, Laz is a good guy. It was on when I went to FanFest that year. CCP did a party bus, and so they picked us all up at the airport. This was for the 10th anniversary. They picked us all up at the airport, and they had cases of beer on the bus for us for the drive from Keflavik to Reykjavik, which shouldn't take all that long. It's not all that far apart, but that road is like 1 lane each direction, and it's twisty as hell. It took us like 45 minutes to get there.
It sucks in the snow. Oh my god.
Yeah, and they took us, and all the flights landed from the U.S. We all landed about the same time. It was like 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning. And people on the bus are just pounding beers at like 8 o'clock in the morning. It was the most ridiculous thing. They took us to a restaurant called the Laundromat in quote unquote downtown Reykjavik, and it's actually a laundromat. So the first floor of it is a buffet place. It unfortunately closed years ago, but the first floor of it at the time was this buffet place. And then downstairs in the basement is literally a laundromat. And so you'd see people walk in with, laundry baskets. They'd go down this door. They'd come back up and get breakfast and then go back down. They're obviously changing their laundry, right? They come back up and it's the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen. But oh my God, that food was so good. I was bummed when I went back again and it was closed. It's like, damn, that was the best place. But it was on that party bus that I met Laz. He was carrying cases of beer from the front of the bus down to the back of the bus so everybody could get a beer there. Actually, when I met him. Okay, let me see if I missed any. No, I think that's it. Okay, any other questions from anybody? It's how many Titans are alive? More than one, less than an infinite.
Here's a question: we ever gonna see a fight like M2 ever again?
Yeah, that was actually asked at the very beginning, Lawrence. So you're gonna have to go back to the beginning and listen to the recording.
Ah, okay.
Um, I mean, the short answer is I would like there to be one because that was a lot of fun. I can't make them engage us. Like there's only so much we can do. I mean, we tried to get Horde to throw down, and you all saw how that ended.
I miss Vietnam, man. I'm telling you that. I miss it.
It was there are definitely pieces of it that I did enjoy doing. I mean, losing all of our space obviously sucked, but there was also a lot of fun to sit with like Wibla and gun structures and just smash things like fighter bombers. He and I had fun doing that one night. We ACLs were brand new with how bookmarks worked. So, sorry, not ACLs, but the bookmark folders. It used to be an item, like an in-game item that you could just trade with them. So the new bookmark folders were brand new. This is in Vietnam, and I was with Merc. I was with Merkelchin, and I was like, hey, Horde's got a mining fleet out right now. They're just a couple of jumps out. Where's your roam? I think he was doing an SNS roam. I was like, where's your roam? He's like, yeah, we're like 6 jumps away from them. I'm like, okay. Tell you what, I will put my Horde alt into their mining fleet, and then you can warp directly to me. And so I got into a venture. I think I was using whatever it was. I was in a mining ship, so it wasn't like unreasonable for a brand new alt and everything like that. And I'm sitting there mining with it, and he and I cannot figure out how the bookmarks work. We're just like, shit, I'm right here, man. Here's the bookmark. How do I share this? What are we doing? So I ended up, we couldn't figure it out. They were brand new. We had no idea what we were doing. Like I had this folder, I couldn't figure out how to add him to it. And so I eventually dropped the Horde mining fleet, joined the SNS fleet. The SNS fleet warped directly to me. And Horde's obviously evacing because we just had it off. Our timing was off. The SNS guys didn't catch anything. And it's clear, like, there is blood on my metaphorical hands with that. I never got purged from Horde for that.
No way. I thought you burned a spy like that.
I did burn a spy. Lorraine, I intended to burn a spy for that, to smash that mining fleet. And our timing was just off. Like, we didn't know how to work the bookmark stuff. Again, they were brand new. That the SNS fleet landed directly where I was. Like, there was literally like blood on my hands there, like standing over the body with a smoking gun. Never got purged.
Damn.
In fact, that alt stayed in Horde. Lorraine, you will love this. I removed that alt from Horde myself this morning.
No way.
Yeah, that alt stayed in Horde for 5 years.
See, guys, sometimes when people meme and tell that the Horde leadership was just GSF fucking around, right? I believe them.
All right, a couple of questions here. Let me get back to that. You think the first day of the Hell Camp and Artec A could have turned into a Super Cat brawl? Right, absolutely. If they had not bitched out, that maybe not have been bigger than M2, but it would have been a huge throwdown. They had a lot of people on that undock. They simply would not engage. If they had, would we have won? I think the answer is yes to that. But they clearly could have reinforced a hell of a lot easier than we could, since we were literally on their Keepstar. But yeah, it would have turned into a massive tie-dye, just slugging match.
Yep.
We had a lot of stuff prepped in the background in case they did. Obviously didn't get used because they all docked up. But we wanted that. We wanted that engagement to occur, and they just bitched out. Yeah,
Like,
they
yeah.
had a ton of stuff there, right? That's absolutely a thing. They had a ton of shit in that station. Their reinforcement cycle was infinitely shorter than ours because they just got to dock, get a new ship, and undock. The ours was, a good number of jumps and everything. Now they would have faced tie-dye. In principle, if our guys were potted, they would not until we'd actually tried to jump them into the system, et cetera, right? There's all those kind of pieces to it. But I mean, we wanted that engagement. The whole command team was just like, yeah, let's do this. And again, I was at freaking work when all this stuff happened. When that breakout that you're talking about occurred, I was at work. I'm sitting there, like my phone is just buzzing and buzzing and buzzing, and I get a break for like 2 minutes, and I pick up my phone and I'd read all the Discord channels, and I was just like, and I can't remember who said it. It was either Zintage or Asher did in one of the command channels. He's like, they docked up, and I was just like, are you fucking kidding me? Because they had linked me screenshots or scans or something in the command channel. I was like, there's like over 100 of them undocked. But yeah, there's no other way to put it, man. They just bitched out. They just Philly is such a freaking coward with it, and then Gobbins is such a freaking coward. The two of them. I mean, obviously this was Gobbins, but Philly's the exact same way. They're such bloody cowards that they won't engage with that, And Gobbins is gone, so who fucking cares?
Like, to give you guys an example, right? We were with a couple of midpoints gating and dumping fucking super capitals where they could just trap us, right? And just delete us and make us lose a lot of stuff. They didn't even try.
Let me see. So the Imperium time unit is back. Yeah. It definitely has not returned to the original Delve time unit, but given how badly Rorquals and everything got nerfed with the excavators, it never will. But it's definitely closer than it was. We've been running some numbers on that. It's actually pretty impressive. I get a report every day on activity like that.
Did you tell the story about who was the reason that the excavators got nerfed?
I did not, but that's that is good. Like, I'm spacing his name now, but he basically lobbied to Omeka. That's right, Omeka
Omeka.
Gold. He got on the CSM and lobbied CCP to make this change. That everybody was like, dude, this is how you play the game. And he got them to nerf it into the fucking basement. And then he rage quit. It's funniest goddamn thing. He literally
Yeah.
petitioned, lobbied. He was on the CSM. He lobbied CCP for them to nerf the way that he played the game. And it was the funniest damn thing. And then when they did it, he's just like, it's that meme, you see that guy riding a bicycle with a stick and puts it into his wheels. That's Omeka. He's like, well, I didn't think they'd actually do it. I'm like, dude. It was the funniest thing. So he nerfed his own play style, not even to the ground, like into the fucking basement.
Yep, and quit.
Yeah, and then he rage quit, basically. Right, I heard Horde Vanguard effectively ran Horde over Goblins for the most part. I mean, kinda. Here's the thing: Goblins was in Vanguard. So did Vanguard run Horde? Yes, but Goblins was in Vanguard and ran Vanguard. So kinda, it just didn't use. Like it's everything else, when you look at Asher, does Asher run DJs? Yes, but the character in DJs isn't named Asher. So, like, is he running it? Yeah, but it's not on Asher. That's the same kind of thing with the Vanguard stuff. It's like he ran it, it just didn't say Gobbins on it. Are they obsessed with not losing? Yeah, that's what I said there. That entire command structure is terrified of losing, and you've got to be willing. I've been in a lot of engagements where we have lost. It happens. I've been in a lot of engagements where we've won too. But if you're afraid to even try, you'll never actually win.
Yep, that's the big one.
And the worst thing you can do, and Asher said this, I've said it, right? Toaster has, all the FCs have, Sniper has, Vintage has. The worst thing you can do as a leadership person, whether you're a fleet commander or anything else, the worst thing you can do as leadership is to have to look your guys in the face, metaphorical face, from a ping or in a fleet or something like that, and say, guys, we've got to stand down. We cannot take this fight. That's the worst thing you can do, right? You hype your guys up. Hey, we're going to go do this. We're going to do all these kind of things, and just say, we can't do it. And our team will actually do that. Their team is so afraid of that they'll just make shit up. Like, we see their pings. We had spies in their command channels. They're like, oh, Goons outformed us 3-1. And we're like, dude, we're at even numbers. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, literally, there's 500 of us and there's like 480 of you. What the shit is this?
Yep.
And they just flat out lie to their guys constantly. Not saying we tell you guys the truth, but what we usually say is future plans. We want to lie to you without lying to you about something. Or we'll just say, hey, I'm not going to answer that. That's what we tell you. So it's like, you guys kind of have an idea of, yeah, there was a thing. There's something happened. They won't tell us. They just flat out lied. And we have all these records because of our spies. It's like, whatever.
The amount of important strategic timers they just didn't follow up because they were afraid, quote unquote, to lose too much ships.
Yeah, it comes from one of the most classic phrases that we actually clipped. It's it's another one of these YouTube things you can go to is dock your faction titans. I mean, that's one of the most classic phrases you'll ever hear from their command chain.
Was it X47?
I want to say yes, but there have been so many of these battles now that I sometimes I conflate these together, but I think that was an X47. Yeah, we're going to pass. Yeah, that's another one. But somebody mentioned Mind One in one of the chats here. Mind One clipped that and put it into one of his songs that he would play. And it's I mean, we are terrible people. I won't deny that. We really are terrible people. But oh my god, that clip is funny. Like I say, you thought for a while the Holding Corp got something to do with Mind One. So Mind One came later, much later. He's only been with us. He really rose to prominence in GSF during Vietnam. Like he was streaming everything before that. He was a DJ and was doing all that stuff before that. But the DJ's retirement fund actually refers to Darius Johnson, not to our space DJ of Mind One. My history of Lorraine and Goons. Well, he hasn't been purged yet, so we still have some time to finish his history.
So the difference is between me and a Ranger. I don't forget my freighters and delivery hunger.
Hey, I've never done that. You need to talk to Div about that, man. I have so many screenshots of Div. The next time he really gets me there, Lorraine, I'm gonna start dropping these screenshots in there. And he's already pissed at me because I've showed him those screenshots. He's like, God damn it. He even said this to me the other day. He's like, oh, I should not have said that. I'm like, no, you should not have. Yeah, speaking of Mind One, he did a really great job during the war, keeping everybody's morale up. Morale is something that is beyond compare in Eve. If you're guys, we were talking about this just a moment ago, like to win you have to be willing to take chances. You have to be honest with your people. But their morale matters. That's part of the honesty when you're doing this with it is you can have all this stuff. Somebody asked me earlier about the Amazon and how those fleets worked. But if you've got all the people and you've got stuff for those people, you're pretty much going to win, right? But if you've got a whole bunch of stuff and you've got no people because they won't log in, well, all that stuff doesn't matter, right? Think about this with all honesty there, guys. If you have 1,000, like if I have 1,000 carriers sitting in my hangar, and I ping that Tiger Claw fleet, and 2 of you guys show up, well, then I don't have 1,000 carriers. I've got 2. Okay, well, me, it's 3. I've got 3. That doesn't matter. And that's where morale comes in. And so people like Mind One doing all those kind of things with us. I mean, almost every night he was DJing, he was on comms. We were laughing, we were having a good time, even though like literally our entire space was being torched. Morale is everything in Eve. You cannot kill an Eve alliance if their morale holds.
Yes.
And we saw this, right? In Vietnam, we took some heavy hits, but our morale never broke. And GSF and the Imperium is still here. Think back, guys, remember, November was just, we're coming up on 4 months, right? 4 months ago, this happened. November 5th, 5 November, however you want to do that, right? We're coming up on 4 months here. How long did it take before the Horde line member was fleeing like nothing else? Well, about 2 days, right? Because their entire leadership lost the faith of their people. And that's all it was. That's why Horde broke. The line members didn't have faith that their leadership was going to be there. Yeah, propaganda is important. Yeah, it absolutely is. Keeping the morale up with your guys, absolutely it is. Mind One is an expert at that propaganda stuff. What was he doing? He was laughing with us. He was spinning tunes. He was doing all those kind of fun things. Yep. Seriously, I know him as Looky because that's what his name is on the character
Oh
screen.
yes.
He was there doing it. You had Brisk on the Meta Show with his ridiculous Fountain Frank. I know a lot of people hated Fountain Frank. I thought he was hilarious. He was an obnoxious dick, and that was the point of that character, that Brisk was doing on the Meta Show, right? That's all propaganda, is keeping your guys entertained.
Propaganda is why I joined the Goons.
Yeah, it's a big piece for it. Yeah, it was a lot of fun watching. One of the best ones is the Meta Show right after M2 when they lost their entire super cap, right when the Hell Camp first began. There's a Meta Show that's got it's got Merlchin, it's got Brisk, it's got Mittens, and it's got Asher on it. And it is the funniest thing because somebody, I think it's Brisk, like foobars a setting and turns their screen green, like this bright fluorescent green, and they call it the smug green, and it's the most hilarious thing to go and watch because the entire screen just turns this bright green. And they're all laughing at the like, what the hell? That's propaganda there. That's like the definition of it is keeping the morale up, chatting with the guys, doing all that kind of stuff.
And those posters, man. The M2 poster was godlike.
Yeah, there's so many of those. The best one of those posters, I'm not sure if there's one you're thinking of, Lorraine. It shows the Keepstar in the background and the goons manning like machine guns, mowing down beans and stuff like that. I love that one.
Yeah, and the one that was like showing a rookie guy that started in tossing the system, right? The chain, how it started and how it ended.
Yeah, there's another one with a dinosaur, right? A T-Rex. That was the symbol of test. With an asteroid with a goon on it coming down like a goon bee, like straight at their head or something. All that kind of stuff. There's a whole bunch of these posters and pictures and everything.
Like, to give you guys an idea how morale was out to us after the war, we burned Delve like in 2 days. We just left, right? Just imagine the bees just going, everyone just releasing everything, right? And we just banned everything. It was wild.
It was a little more than that because I was in those fleets, but yeah, I mean, it was when they pulled back and left. It took a little more than that, but it took about a week with everything, right? Because of timers. But yeah, there were fleets going. There are multiple fleets going 24/7, just hitting everything. Carriers, dreads, supers, titans. We were actually, I shit you guys not, we were actually using titans to gun down Pocos because people were bored, and they're like, let's do this. I was on a fleet. I think I'll leave it with this one because I got to get ready for my space meeting today. One of the funniest fleets that Loretta's talking about there. I was with Apple. I was with Apple Pair, and we were gonna go ref Pocos. We're just gonna go around and hit Pocos. And I was just like, okay, what are you gonna do tonight there, Apple? Are you gonna do like siege bombers or something like that? He's like, nah, I'm gonna do supers. I'm like, for Pocos? He's like, yep. It's like, okay. And if I recall correctly, he got like 100 supers on this fleet. And I'm with him going through, and I eventually told him on the command channel after like the first Poco, I'm like, Apple, I'm just going to enter these into RC2 so our guys know when to go back and hit them. Because 100 supers coming out of warp will ref a Poco in less than a minute. Like my fighter bombers didn't even get there. Like, all right, I'm just going to dock them up, and we would align to the next Poco. And yeah, you just see this wall, hundreds and hundreds of fighter bombers going in there, and it would slam into this Poco. It would be refed. Then we would go back and we'd do it again because Pocos didn't have damage caps. So it was
Yeah.
insane.
We killed also faction 40s at Kaldari with Titans, I think, right?
I honestly don't remember that, but it's like I said, we've done so many of these things. It very well could have. The one I remember is Pocos with Titans because it was just the most ridiculous thing. Because I remember on the command columns too, it was like, don't fucking DD the Pocos. It was just hilarious. All right, guys, I'm gonna head out. So thank you all for coming out. Happy Sunday. Like I said, I do these every couple of months. There in the MOTD, I put a link to all of these old videos if you want to go and watch any of them to hear some of these old stories with it. But on that, you guys have a good rest of your day. Hope your week's going well. All that fun stuff. We'll see you guys later.
Thank you, Uncle Ranger.
Yep. See y'all later.